Hello there, very good evening. You're watching London Live News at 6 with Anthony Baxter. Coming up, a man from Croydon avoids prison after admitting sharing a grossly offensive video of a Grenfell Tower effigy burning on a bonfire. Not just a few bad apples. The man temporarily leading the Met admits the scale of the problem facing the force when questioned by MPs. We'll take a look at the weather for you. It's going to stay pretty settled out there over the next few days. Plus, comedian Angie Lamar will be with us. Angie is rebooting her We Walk Wednesday movement, something she started in Lewisham last year. We'll hear how getting out and about has helped her. And more movement for you, this time in the form of dance. New York's disco era is being celebrated in a new Shoreditch exhibition. We'll be speaking to the man behind these photos. All of that to come first. So this evening, a man from Croydon has been given a suspended prison sentence after admitting sending a grossly offensive viral video of a cardboard model of Grenfell Tower being burned on a bonfire. Westminster's Chief Magistrate told Paul Bassetti that the film he shared was disgusting, disrespectful and abhorrent. Well, Henry Thomas Aldridge is here and has been covering this. Just remind us of the background.
Well, as we all know, the Grenfell Tower disaster occurred in 2017, but this video involving Paul Bassetti occurred in November of 2018. And in the video, he is seen burning a model of the tower with figures inside. Now, we won't show the video, but he utters horrifying comments such as, "Who's jumping? Don't worry, stay in your flats." And that's what happens when you don't pay your rent. And others in the video are seen laughing, and there's even one racist remark made as well. Now, we've got to remember there were 72 victims in the disaster in West London, and the video was criticised when it went viral, and it's criticised now, quite rightly, and the relatives of those victims describe Bassetti's actions as vile.
Yeah, not the first time that this case has come to court, is it?
No, it's not. Bassetti was previously found guilty in 2019, but the Crown Prosecution Service appealed the decision, but Bassetti's acquittal was quashed by the High Court. Now, Bassetti, at the time in 2018, did actually hand himself in because he thought, I just want to tell the truth. But the judge didn't accept Bassetti's argument at the time because he said the figures in the bonfire were his friends.
OK, and just in terms of what was said today, give us an outline of what we heard at the magistrates.
Well, the Chief Magistrate, Paul Goldspring, said he was horrified by the actions of Paul Bassetti, and he went on to say it's disrespectful and disgusting to almost everybody who has an ounce of decency about them. And in the past, Bassetti had described his own actions as terrible, but just one of those stupid moments. But today he pleaded guilty and was given a 10-week suspended sentence. OK, Henry, thank you. Henry Thomas Aldridge there. Details then of what happened at Westminster Magistrates. Paul Bassetti given that suspended sentence. Let's move on. The acting Met Commissioner has admitted that problems within the force are not just a few bad apples. Sir Stephen House, who is running Scotland Yard until Dame Cressida Dick's successor is announced, told MPs that efforts were underway to root out unacceptable behaviour as fast as possible. Met officers have been at the centre of a number of crimes and scandals, including the murder of Sarah Everard and the strip search of a schoolgirl in East London.
Confidence is a big issue for us. It's not enough to say it's a few bad apples. There is an issue there where we need to address an attitude within the organisation of misogyny and of too many officers being insensitive to race issues, to issues of gender, issues of sexual orientation, and we need to get more sensitivity when we're dealing with that, and we are working very hard with our officers.
Sir Stephen House there. Well, the Home Secretary and the Mayor will work together to appoint the next Met Commissioner. Just staying with police matters for a moment, a review carried out by the watchdog, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, has found black people are 7 times more likely to be stopped and searched than white people, whilst Asian people were 2.5 times more likely. The study of the use of the power across England and Wales included one case of a black boy who was searched more than 60 times over a 2-year period. The IOPC says police chiefs must overhaul the use of stop and search, drawing up new guidelines to end discrimination. Boris Johnson has faced another grilling in Parliament over the Partygate scandal as the Labour leader used PMQs to accuse the Prime Minister of choosing to slander people in private but lacked the backbone to repeat it in public. Sir Keir Starmer was referring to reports that Mr Johnson had criticised the Archbishop of Canterbury at a private Conservative Party meeting. Justin Welby had spoken out over the lockdown breaches.
Once the cameras were off, the Prime Minister went to see his backbenchers and he was back to blaming everyone else. He even said that the Archbishop of Canterbury had not been critical enough of Putin. In fact, the Archbishop called Putin's war an act of great evil, and the Church of England has led the way in providing refuge to those fleeing. Would the Prime Minister like to take this opportunity to apologise for slandering the Archbishop and the Church of England?
Mr. Speaker, I think the right honourable gentleman. I was slightly taken aback to be Sorry, Mr. Speaker. I was slightly taken aback for the government to be criticised over the policy that we have devised to end the deaths at sea in the Channel as a result of cruel criminal gangs. I was surprised that we were attacked for that. And actually, Mr. Speaker, it turns out that policy. Do you know who proposed that policy? First of all, in 2004, it was David Blunkett, Mr. Speaker, who said it was a 21st, yes it was, and she'll remember, a 21st century solution to the problems of illegal asylum seeking and immigration. He should stick with, he's a Corbynister in a smart Islington suit. That's the truth.
Moments there from PMQs. Well, MPs will vote tomorrow on whether or not a committee should investigate claims that PM misled Parliament. Let's move on. A murder investigation is underway after a 20-year-old man was stabbed to death at a house in Plaistow yesterday afternoon. Emergency services were called to the house on Hudson Close. Police say the victim's family has been told no arrests have been made. Right, let's move on to football, and Stamford Bridge plays host to a huge clash in the capital this evening. The derby sees Arsenal travel to Chelsea after a run of form that is seeing their hopes of Champions League qualification ebb away. Well, the Gunners' boss, Mikel Arteta, has also admitted that Arsenal took a risk in delaying contract talks with Alexandre Lacazette until the summer, with the captain now revealing he has open discussions with other clubs. The 30-year-old currently looks set to leave the Emirates as time runs out on his deal at the end of the season.
There is nothing to look back. Everything is still to play for. Our ambition is still intact. Our desire is still intact. And we know the challenge ahead, and we're going to go for it. Well, his contract situation allows him to make the decision about his future. We have expressed clearly what our intention is to speak in the summer once we know where we are about what we're going to do in the future together. And for the rest, I just want him fully focused on his duty, which is now defend Arsenal the best possible way, like he's done all the time he's been with us. And that's why he's been wearing the armband on this football club. So that's a big reason.
Kick-off tonight at Stamford Bridge is 7:45. Right, elsewhere, the home of football will play host to one of the biggest heavyweight boxing clashes of the year this coming Saturday. Brixton's Dylan White takes on the world title holder Tyson Fury in the bout at Wembley. 33-year-old Fury is the favourite, though there are many that believe White could cause an upset in front of what's expected to be a 94,000-strong crowd.
This fight's all about being able to adapt and make decisions quickly, you understand? Because Tyson Fury, he says one thing, he does another thing. Like he said, he doesn't know he's going to show up on the day or what's going to happen or whatever. He might decide that he wants to box or he wants to fight. So I need to be able to adapt as of when and do my thing and keep changing and keep adapting to whatever he does. And that's what it would take to win the fight.
I've had a great preparation, you know. There's never any complaints from me. We always do what we can do in training camps and, you know, do the best we can do on the night, and that's it. I'm sure Dillian's had a great training camp as well, and he's a good fighting man. And fans are in for a real treat. 94,000 people. They're going to see a good tear-up. I know Dillian, I know him personally, and he knows me, and we're going to rock and roll on the night. We're ready to throw down and treat us all to a hell of a barnstormer. Don't worry about that.
big match taking place at Wembley this coming Saturday. Right, let's take a look at the weather for you. Pretty chilly out there this evening, certainly for this time of year. Temperatures down to about 8 degrees. It will be single figures for the first thing on Thursday morning. A mostly dry and fine day to come tomorrow. Lots of sunshine. Some light cloud around at times, temperatures reaching about 17, possibly 18 degrees. Friday, it will feel cooler with more cloud and a bit of a breeze. We're looking at highs of about 15 degrees, some showers as well at times, and a similar feel for Saturday. Just before the break, events leading up to the Platinum Jubilee in June continue. Just take a listen to this. This is a new anthem commissioned by the British Monarchist Society to celebrate the Queen's 70 years of service. It features the London Community Gospel Choir, the West End's Rodney Earl Clark, and national treasure Leslie Garrett. Well, it is a two-part composition, a double A-side as you might call it. One called The Four British Nations, and this one called We Thank You From Our Hearts. There we go, that new anthem for the Queen's Jubilee. It's got a punch, hasn't it? Still to come this evening. The Britain's Got Talent impressionist Francine Lewis has shared how her family became the victims of a £90,000 scam. She says what she fell for could easily happen to anyone. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Hello there, welcome back. Let's move on to one or two other stories today. The RMT union has announced it is to ballot more than 40,000 railway workers for strike action in disputes over jobs and pay. A yes vote would lead to the biggest rail strike in modern history. The union has accused Network Rail of planning to cut thousands of safety critical maintenance jobs, something disputed by the company. The ballot will open next week and close at the end of May. Strike action could begin as soon as June. Scientists say they've identified bacteria in urine which could be linked to an aggressive type of prostate cancer. The discovery could offer a new way to spot signs of the disease early. The bacteria is also known to cause other types of cancer, including those in the stomach. And people could soon be able to watch TV and send emails whilst being behind the wheel of a self-driving car. Proposed updates to the highway code will not include using a mobile phone, though, whilst driving. This is according to the government. Self-drives currently not allowed on UK roads, but the first vehicles could be ready for use later this year. Now, the Britain's Got Talent impressionist Francine Lewis has spoken of how her family were conned of £90,000 by criminals pretending to run a stocks and shares company. The horror of the scam for Francine was that it was carried out by somebody pretending to be somebody else. Figures show that people under the age of 35 most likely to become a victim of impersonation scams. Well, Hebe spoke to Francine earlier.
I never in a million years thought I could ever be scammed for anything, you know, because I'm not a gullible person. Well, so I didn't think. And the fact that, you know, my family was scammed for £90,000 makes me just feel, you know, absolutely to this day sick inside that I fell for this. But these people are so convincing, and the reason why I'm involved is obviously being an impressionist and being an impersonator. You know, how did I not see through this impersonation? Because these people are impersonators. They're impersonators of people who try to pretend they're genuine. It could be people from either the police, from your bank, you know, from a government department. It can be anything or anyone. And in my case, it was through an investment fraud that we got scammed.
So given your expertise, because of what happened to you, what kind of red flags should people watching this look out for? What do you look back on and think, oh, I wish I had seen that, and I wish I had seen that as a red flag?
Well, I funny enough always did have a gut feeling. It was my husband that, you know, really got involved in it from the start, who had convinced me that this was all okay. He'd done his, you know, research, which he did do. He did a lot of research. It took a long time for him to actually hand over his first bit of money, because I think he put £1,000 in first of all to see what was happening, and you know, over time he could see his money substantially, you know, going up every day, and the interest he was making, and he got excited, and then he put another 1,000 in, and then another 1,000, but then he got my father-in-law involved, and then he got me involved. I spoke to these people. I think in hindsight I should have met these people, but I don't even think that would have mattered, because after I'd done Rip Off Britain, I had a lot of people contact me and said they did actually meet these people, and they were also convinced, you know, they had offices, they had everything, you know, to show that they were legitimate people in the stocks and shares, the finance, investment, you know, investment company Canary Wharf. But, you know, it's really, really difficult to see through it. That's why you really, really have to think before you hand out any money, and just be so cautious. I would never hand out not even £10 for something unless I investigated it. And well, we investigated this, but obviously not properly, because when it came to the crunch, we found out my husband didn't know that they weren't part of the FCA. When I contacted Action Fraud, they said, you know, these people aren't registered.
Is one of the main things for you not putting your money anywhere near something that isn't registered with the FCA if you're looking in terms of investment?
100%. Yeah, no, there have to be. But even so, I think it's really hard. I mean, so many people are getting into crypto. And I know loads of people are now getting scammed with, the whole crypto thing, because people are just setting up companies. Really stop and think before you hand that money over. It's so easy to want to invest your money and want to see it grow. People are really struggling at the moment, so any little money you've got, just don't give it to these people, because half of the time they are scams.
Obviously, what's happened to you, it's not unreasonable that you're skeptical about everything nowadays. But for some people, they have to invest their money. They have to make a return on it, especially when we're looking at the inflation right now. So what would your tips be in terms of doing due diligence on where you put your money? How can you get round these scams?
Well, all I would say is, if you're worried, or if you're not sure about something that you have put your money into or given your personal information to, check out the Take 5 to Stop Fraud website. So it's a Take 5 website, and it tells you everything. It gives you so much useful information. I only wish I knew about it when it happened to me. But also contact your bank immediately, and also Action Fraud.
Francine Lewis there, details of what happened to her and her family. Right, 2/3 of households are currently undervaluing the cost of living crisis here in the UK. That is according to a company that has now created a new free tool to try and give us an idea of how much we're spending and what we can afford to save on. Henry has been speaking to the founder of Nausco to find out more about the effects of the cost of living crisis and why so many people feel it's someone else's problem.
We're facing this unbelievably challenging period, and this comes on the back of the lockdowns and all the challenges that's created for families. But UK households are looking at an enormous increase in the cost of living. Our research, our forecasting suggests that for a typical household, that could be as much as £3,000 to £5,000, and that's additional money that they'll need to find over the next 12 months. Just for their lifestyle to keep pace for where it was over the last 12 months. That's not assuming you're buying anything new or being extravagant. That's just the same thing in the future. The challenge is that households at the moment haven't really appreciated how large those rises may be. Part of the reason for that is that we absorb this information in bits. We hear about energy price rises. We hear about increases to our mobile phone contract costs. We hear about the rising price of fuel at the pumps. But we don't put all those things together, understand how they relate, and connect all that across the entire household. And when you do that, the numbers can be really shocking.
So why do you think then that households are undervaluing the cost of living crisis? I know you mentioned there that because it's coming in little bits, but if they keep getting told that there is a cost of living crisis, why do they keep undervaluing it?
I think people are sort of in denial. It's almost as though when you get really bad news, you want to believe it's not going to apply to you. It reminds me a little bit of what at least I experienced in my own head at the beginning of the pandemic, at the beginning of 2020. I was hearing this terrible news about what was happening in Asia, what was happening in China, but somehow I didn't feel like it was going to apply to me. And then, of course, it applied to all of us. In our research, we've been looking at a survey or a study of households across the UK, balanced for typical household composition. And what we're finding is that only about 1 in 20 UK households are correctly identifying how serious this problem will be. 2/3 of households, that's the vast majority of us, believe that they're only going to see their living costs rise by about £1,000 over the next 12 months. Unfortunately, the forecast is it's likely to be at least 3 times that, between £3,000 and £5,000 for a typical UK household by the time they have kids. Part of the reason for that is that those costs are often spread across different bill payers in a household. You might pay some things monthly, some things annually. You might not have your finger on all the different subscription services. And so getting a single view of all that information is really hard for most households, which is one of the reasons we built our free tool, Nous.co, and other services like that online can help you form that single view at a glance of what's going to happen to your finances over the next 12 months.
Yes, so you are the founder of Nous. Now, how does that help general households collate all that information so that they have a better idea of what to do with their money and how much to save and how much they will eventually spend, in what is a tough time at the moment.
It's a very tough time for UK households, and I think it's particularly tough for those on lower incomes for whom energy costs and food and fuel costs are a larger share of their total expenditure. What we decided to do is build a free dashboard that allows you to see at a glance, in real time, what you're actually spending your money on. We're particularly interested in things that you don't want to buy, but you have to buy, which might be home insurance or car insurance, energy for your home, and other basic living needs. And what we do is we show you in a live dashboard view what you're currently paying for those things, and over the next 12 months, what you're going to be paying for those things based on what we already know or can reasonably forecast is going to happen to all those different costs and services. We're in the process of building a more sophisticated tool that then also helps you automatically manage some of those costs to find you better deals for those services and make sure that you're not overpaying for things like your satellite television, your broadband, and your energy supply. But right now, what we wanted to do as quickly as possible was get our free tool out there so that households can get benefit from it at a time when UK households need it more than they ever have.
There we go. Head to now.co for that free tool. You're watching London Live News with Anthony Baxter. A reminder of the top story coming up after the break. Plus, comedian Angela Ma will be with us as she kickstarts her We Walk Wednesday initiative, a movement that started during lockdown. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Hello there, welcome back. Let's remind you of the main story this evening. A man from Croydon has been given a suspended prison sentence after admitting sending a grossly offensive viral video of a cardboard model of Grenfell Tower being burned on a bonfire. 49-year-old Paul Bassetti filmed the footage at a fireworks party in November 2018 and then shared it in a WhatsApp group. It prompted outrage at the time, with direct references to the residents of Grenfell Tower. Bassetti appeared at Westminster Magistrates this morning, where he admitted the charge. He was previously found not guilty following a two-day trial, but the acquittal was quashed by a High Court. Well, he was given a 10-week prison sentence, suspended for 2 years. The acting Met Commissioner has admitted that problems within the force are not just a few bad apples. Sir Stephen House, who is running Scotland Yard until Dame Cressida Dick's successor is announced, told MPs that efforts were underway to root out unacceptable behaviour as fast as possible. Met officers have been at the centre of a number of crimes and scandals, including the murder of Sarah Everard and the strip search of a schoolgirl in East London.
Confidence is a big issue for us. It's not enough to say it's a few bad apples. There is an issue there where we need to address an attitude within the organisation of misogyny and of too many officers being insensitive to race issues, to issues of gender, issues of sexual orientation, and we need to get more sensitivity when we're dealing with that, and we're working very hard with our officers. As an example, every one of my colleagues on the senior leadership team is out on a regular basis talking to roomfuls of officers and staff about the problems that we face and taking those problems head on.
Staff at a school in Putney have spoken of their shock and sadness after a 10-year-old girl died during a trip to a swimming pool yesterday. The child from Hotham Primary was taken to hospital but died a short time later. She is suspected of having a heart attack. A spokesman for the school said the entire community had been left in shock. Campaigners fighting to save an Edwardian building on Oxford Street, used by Marks and Spencer, have welcomed the decision by the government to block a demolition. The mayor had given the go-ahead to bring down the 100-year-old building near Selfridges to build a new complex of shops, offices and a gym. Well, the Community Secretary, Michael Gove, has now stepped in so ministers can scrutinise plans amid concerns destroying it would be a further loss, certainly for the area, and also be bad for the environment. The funeral has taken place for the wanted singer Tom Parker, who died last month from brain cancer at the age of 33. Hundreds of fans gathered in Petts Wood in southeast London to pay their respects. His bandmates served as pallbearers before the ceremony. He is survived by his wife and their young children. Now, from a handful of people in a park in Lewisham to hundreds taking part across the country, the We Walk Wednesdays initiative is a true acorn to oak tree idea, the brainchild of the comedian and director Angie Lamar. The movement began in March 2021 as a tonic to isolation and a rise in mental health problems connected to the pandemic. Well, the walking was paused over the winter, but it's now back, and Angie told me more a short time ago.
I'm a dog walker, so I've been walking my dog for, 14 years now. And my friend and I, Gladys Campbell, who is another comedian, we were just walking through the parks and we were thinking, what could we actually do to help, with the pandemic and just get people out? Because we love walking. So we figure, you don't have to have a dog. Maybe we should start something. And that's how it started. I just put on my Facebook, does anybody want to walk on a Wednesday from 7 till 8 and join us? Now, I'm trained in yoga therapy, laughter therapy. So I thought, well, how can I add something to the group as well? And on that day, we just saw women walking to us, men and women just walking to us like, oh my God, this is a big walking group. And that's just how it started. And, we do the laughter yoga and then we would do dance at the end of the walk. And that was just it. It was just something that just grew. And every week people just kept joining us, and then different parks wanted to have their We Walk Wednesdays. And that's how it just grew. Now we've got 14 parks.
Yeah, 12 months on, 14 parks. Did you imagine there would be such a demand for this type of group activity?
Never. I never saw it. I just thought I could commit to a Wednesday every week, and that's it. I'll just commit to a Wednesday. And just because of the viral, it just went viral, and everybody just thought, well, that's a very simple idea, just coming together and walking. So I never saw that. I never saw that there would be so many people saying, can I be an ambassador for my park? Can I have one in Birmingham? Can we have one in Leeds? Can we have one in Leicester? And I'm like, well, all you've got to do is meet on a Wednesday. We'll provide the T-shirts, the promotion, and just join the team.
Yeah, I mean, I know comedy obviously runs through you. It's something that is within you and has been a big part of your life. What factor does that have on this? The comedy therapy, the laughter therapy that comes with it, is that something that is fundamental to a We Walk Wednesday session?
Absolutely. I mean, when you want to add something to a walking group and you find that you've got your skills, which is making people laugh, but also laughter therapy allows you to force the laughter. And when those endorphins just go off in the body, your body doesn't know whether or not it's funny or not funny. The very fact that you're laughing just creates a different energy in your body. So to do that before we walk, it's just worked out so nicely, because now everybody's really geared up to walking. Everyone's laughing, everyone's talking, and then we dance at the end of it. I mean, you couldn't write a better format for 1 hour.
Yeah, joking aside, literally, there are some serious health implications here as well, aren't there? We know that an awful lot of people have been inadvertently affected by the pandemic. Their mental health has suffered, their levels of fitness have suffered. You've spotted some of these signs as well, I imagine.
Yes, because I know how I benefit from walking. I had a major operation 2 years ago, and walking really allowed me to just bring myself back together and just be out in the atmosphere, just be outdoors and just feeling what it feels like to be around the nature. And mentally, it was so good for me. So I always felt that people are not benefiting from walking. I have to walk my dog every day, so I know what that does for me. And some of the feedback that we've been getting from some of the walkers is it's saving their lives, mentally and physically. And they're committing to something, because a lot of people don't like the gyms. I'm not someone that runs to gym. I'm a swimmer. I swim every day, so I get the benefit of swimming. But also, I don't like being around the gym. I feel like there's a competitive spirit. Whereas in the walking group, you've got the fast walkers, you've got the medium walkers, and you've got walkers that even come with their walking stick, and they just walk in a different pace. And they just walk away feeling like, this has been great. It's been an evening out. So I'm talking to people, I'm laughing. It's just a wonderful, it's so healthy and physically and for a mental state as well.
There's something about dog walkers. I'm a dog walker. I've got a dog.
Okay.
And the minute you get a dog in London, everyone starts to talk, don't they? Dog walkers talk to each other. But before that, people will ignore you. Have you noticed that?
Absolutely. I was at an event one day and I saw this man and I said to him, I know you from somewhere. And he's like, and I know you. And we were puzzled to work out where we knew each other from. And then we went, oh, it's the dog. And it's almost like without the dogs, you don't recognize people. But what I found, especially in Hillyfields Park, was that there's so many people with dogs. And as soon as you meet each other, it's like a code to actually, you have to talk to each other.
Yeah.
It's like Volkswagen. I've got a Volkswagen Beetle as well. And when you drive it, everybody flashes. It's that unspoken word as dog walkers as well.
Angie Lamar there speaking to me earlier, and you can find out more about We Walk Wednesday on their Facebook group. Stay with us. Still to come this evening. Art in miniature form, why tiny creations are creating a storm in the capital. We'll be meeting those behind the Small is Beautiful exhibition. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. From breaking news to headline events, the latest trends and places to be.
You can now keep up to date on daily life in London across London Live's social platforms.
Start the day with an update on the travel and weather, and know what's on around the city and what's being seen by others.
With stories from London Live's team of reporters and your videos of the news moments that matter.
Minute by minute. That's London Live News on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and more.
Find us at London Live. Welcome back to the final part of tonight's show. You'll need a good eye for this, certainly a strong lens. Artworks in miniature have returned to London, the exhibition where some quite literally fit through the eye of a needle. We've been speaking to the artists involved in the Small is Beautiful showcase to find out what goes into making tiny pieces of art like this.
I tend to work at night because the noise of traffic and the vibrations of traffic are enough to shake the art. So I have to work at night, I have to close the curtains, close the windows, I have to calm my heartbeat down, I have to calm my physical body so that I almost go into a trance-like state. I sit down, I work at night, I calm myself down, and I squeeze my fingers together and I literally work between heartbeats. Otherwise, my fingers shake, because if you have one slight false move, and you can lose months of work in an instant. Static electricity can pull away my art. And once my art has left, once it's disappeared from under the microscope, static electricity can pull it away. And then where's it gone? I can spend ages on my hands and knees trying to find the art. So I'm very happy to be here at this exhibition full of these wonderful, amazing artists from all around the world. I hope they will be inspired to see the variety of work that's on display. There's an artist which creates art by crocheting threads together to create art. I sculpt and create art, probably the smallest here, inside the eye of a needle. There's people who actually create their own paper and then they fold it to create origami sculptures of art. Such a variety. The ideas, it's so inspirational to see what people do and how they create art and how it's shown. It's a truly, seeing is believing. I mean, the challenges of all micro art, the challenges are huge, monumental, but the art is microscopic.
My work is miniature. I customise train set figures and hide them on the street interacting with the urban environment, mostly in London, but I've worked in cities all around the world. Working with miniatures, things have always intrigued me, and I love the idea of hiding figures around the street, possibly for people to find, like almost a magical world that most people would ignore or not see at all. But the few eagle-eyed people would spot. And it took off from there, really. I became interested in the photography of these miniature figures on the streets, the serendipity of finding an interesting location for them to be placed into, how the fact that they're miniature, how that can create questions in the work and talk about broader issues in society. About being lost and overwhelmed by this big city. Really, my favourite places are the unknown street corners, really, rather than famous landmarks. So just lying down in a gutter somewhere in the West End, that's my preferable kind of location. I like being able to spot interesting architectural features in the city that may not be the famous landmarks, but look interesting in camera. I want people to reassess how they view the city and how they view their lives, I guess, on a daily occurrence. Like when you're out, usually you don't look at your surroundings and you don't really look down and look around you. And I guess I want to encourage people to look around themselves more, to notice things on the street, to notice the small interactions that happen with people around them. And I hope that my work might draw that out of them, allow people to look more. And as the show as a whole, I think that does it in spades, really, because the whole show is about observing the small details that you might otherwise miss in a variety of different ways. The artists work in such different formats, and photography and sculpture and crochet and carving, pencils, and there's a real interesting variety, but it's all about looking at details in different ways and reassessing what you may think of the real world.
You can see them just about for yourself. 79 to 85 Old Brompton Road, and they're there until the end of July. Finally, this evening, we're taking you back to 1970s New York. A collection of photos displaying the disco era in the city has opened at the Glitterbox Gallery in Shoreditch. Henry has been speaking to the man behind the images, Bill Bernstein.
It was a unique time in New York. The city was almost in default. It was very, it was almost like Berlin in when the wall came down. And so rents were very cheap. It attracted a lot of creative types in all different areas of art. And then disco happened. And so between the creative people that were in New York City, as well as the other well-heeled New Yorkers, they all tended to go meet under the giant disco tent, and it was quite a scene, and that's what I photographed.
So what is it about that era that is so captivating? I know you said there that, you know, you had two sort of, you know, creative types and then the well-to-do types, but what captivated you about that era?
Well, I had never seen any sort of events like that, any sort of cross-cultural meetings like that in my life. You had the trans population along with the business population in New York, the Wall Streeter dancing next to the transgender woman from Puerto Rico. The queer community really had a strong part in the creation of that scene. It was visually very interesting, and it was culturally very interesting to me. That's why I pursued it.
And so these shots are from the 70s, as we've said. Why are you hosting an exhibition 50 years later?
Why? Well, I think that's a good question. I think the music still lives on in a different form. Defected Records is primarily a house music label. And house music really came from disco. You know, if you strip off the violins and the horns and all that, and you get down to the basic beat, you know, you've got house music. And I think that people are looking back towards the era that I photographed with a certain reverence and curiosity. Also, Glitterbox, which is part of Defected Records, really caters to an inclusive audience. And, you know, having spoken with Simon Dunmore, who's the president, you know, his vision of Glitterbox is one of, you know, acceptance, freedom of expression, all the things that I saw back then, and that interested me. So there's that great connection and that audience of people who are interested in looking back at what I shot.
So do you have a favorite photo in the collection, or maybe, you know, it was in the photograph, there's something that you managed to, you know, snap that you really like, or a certain place that you liked taking photographs?
A lot of places were interesting. Paradise Garage, which was, I lived in Soho, New York at that point, and Paradise Garage was kind of out around the corner from where I lived. So Paradise Garage was a great place because it was get down and dance all night long till the early hours of the morning kind of place. And so one of my favorite photographs is that scene, that dance floor scene at Paradise Garage. And I almost get a high looking at that photograph. So that's one of my favorites. And I also managed to photograph Larry Levan, who was the DJ there, who most people into the music scene today know who Larry is. But there are some shots that I did at a place called Gigi's Barnum Room, which was the trans crowd of the day. And that was very interesting to me, to be around that population, which I'd never been around before, and get to know some of those people. Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few.
There's some never before seen photos in the exhibition as well. Where were those ones you didn't want to display at the time, or is there another reason for that? Well,
you know, when COVID, the lockdown happened in New York, had a lot of time on my hands, as we all did. And so I decided to go through my contact sheets from that time period. And I just really gave it a deep look, hard look. And I discovered a group of pictures that I really liked, and that really described the scene to me. But for some reason I had passed on the last big pass that I did through my work. So, I just it was like a deep dive into my work and found some pictures that I still wonder today, how did I miss this picture?
Bill Bernstein's works are called Last Dance, and you can see the exhibition until the end of this month, the 29th of April. A final check on the weather for you. A pretty chilly night this evening. Temperatures down to about 8 degrees. Single figures certainly by first thing on Thursday. Tomorrow should be mostly dry and fine. Lots of sunny spells, a little bit of light cloud around at times, and temperatures reaching 17 degrees. Friday feeling slightly cooler under more cloud and a bit of a breeze as well. There could be the chance of a light shower in places as well. Temperatures about 15 Celsius and a similar feel for Saturday. That's your lot this evening. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow at 6.